this is the gold mine. They give you action verbs for your resume. If you're getting tired of writing the word spearheaded all the time, or led, or directed, you have a ton of other options that even Harvard says are good. So I still use this. I graduated last year, but I still use this list and I go back to it all the time. Let me start recording. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming to my very first webinar. I'm new to all this, so still figuring out how all this runs, but I am beyond excited to get to talk with you guys rather than just through Slack. My work schedule has been a little crazy the last few weeks, which is why I wanted to see if there's any way I can just hop on a call with you guys, answer questions, and go through all that. So just as a brief word of introduction, you all know who I am, and my full-time job is actually as a product manager at Cengage, but on the side, I love working with students like you guys to guide you through the college application process. So that's where College Lead started. I started College Lead in April, and I am so excited that it has grown to a community of over 1,000 YouTube subscribers and over 300 members on the Slack channel, and hope to keep this running. So yeah, I can talk for days about anything college apps, but if you have any specific questions, feel free to unmute yourself, ask me, or you can post a question in the chat instead. So, hello? But yeah, so if you have any questions, if not, I can get started with some general advice on essay and for interviews and all of that. So feel free to drop any questions in Q&A.
No.
Okay. With that, let me get started then with general advice on college essay writing. So, let me see. Should we talk about not being able to take the SAT of the test optional in COVID essay? Yeah, you can totally mention that in the COVID section of the additional information section. Let's say, because in some areas in the US, SAT tests are still happening and they're not being canceled. So it's definitely an important factor to let college admission officers know, hey, I actually wasn't able to take a test, so here's what I did. Even if the school is test optional, let's say you took the SAT once and you were not able to take it twice and other students were able to, so their super score is higher, you do want to let admission officers try to take that into account. So in the end, the decision is up to you, but I would still recommend noting that down in the additional information section. And I made a YouTube video on how you can structure that response. So feel free to check that out because I have, I think, 8 different templates that you can use to modify it off of. But essentially, 1 sentence or 2 sentences will be enough. How should we evaluate schools as safety, target reach, if so many of them are test optional or test blind? That is an excellent question. And I think this is something that obviously is happening first right now. And this is the first year that something like this has ever happened. I would say you'll have to take in a few different factors into consideration. So if you do have a test score, go through the traditional route of comparing your test score with the freshman profile. All you have to do is Google, let's say, if you're interested in Harvard, just Google Harvard, like freshman profile, and you can see the average stats there. So let me actually share my screen and show you guys what that looks like. Okay, so these are the statistics for freshmen or admission for Harvard. Number of applicants, admitted, waiting list. Okay, blah, blah, blah. What we are really interested in is, let me see, Harvard freshman profile, stats. Let's see if we can get any information there. Did they remove it? Wow. Flip side of me not being able to prep for this. Let's try Stanford, guys. There we go. Okay, this is something you want to find. And I'm sure Harvard had this somewhere, so I'll look after this call and send you the link. But this is one way you can tell if a school will be in your target reach or safety. If you meet the middle 50%, so let's say your test score is anywhere from 740 to 800, same thing here for reading and writing, LOL Stanford being a little weaker in reading and writing. But this is a really good place to calibrate. So if you do meet the 50%, then that would be your target, unless the acceptance rate is ridiculously low. So Stanford's acceptance rate is very low. So even if you do meet these two requirements, that'll still be a reach just because there's going to be more qualified students applying than there are seats available. So let's say you don't know what your test score is. In that case, go off of a few things. One is the acceptance rate. So Stanford's is around like 4. You can always Google that. So Stanford acceptance rate. Yeah, so it's around 4.4%. So that means even if you are qualified, you're still going to have to leave it up to luck and some element of chance to get in. So that's going to be your reach regardless. You don't want to have that as a target. But let's say you put in like UC Davis acceptance rate, it's 41.1%. So that's pretty much a target school, a pretty good target school. As long as you meet the requirements. And in terms of the requirements, I would go back here. Sometimes they list the GPA, so you probably have to dive deeper into here. So I would take a look at some elements like the GPA, how prestigious the school is, the acceptance rate, and you can benchmark off of that. If you do want anything a little more specific, you can always take just a practice SAT test at home and see what score you get. But yeah, generally in the freshman profile, they will provide like your GPA, the test scores, whatnot. So if you have any previous test scores or GPA, obviously everyone has a GPA, benchmark off of that in tech. Okay, and yeah, I will say though, for schools that are test optional or even specifically test blind, that means that they have less information to go off of for your application. So my guess is that there will be more weight placed on your interview, if there is one, your personal essays, teacher recommendations, if that is a thing, and also your extracurriculars, honors, and awards. I will say if any of you guys are applying to the UCs, start that now because the deadline is going to be November 30th. And unlike the common application, the extracurricular and award section, they ask for 2 or 3 additional questions with around a 200 character word limit, or I think, yeah, so it's pretty hefty. So I would get started on that ASAP, especially with UCs being test blind now. And that's something that UCs will place more weight on. They don't even have like teacher recommendation letters. So I would spend a lot of time focusing on those personal insight essays and also start drafting those descriptions for extracurriculars and awards. I hope that answers your question, but feel free to post a follow-up in the chat if so, because I feel like I just rambled, but hopefully all this information is helpful. It's all in my head, but this is why doing a webinar is a little more time efficient for me than having to film and write out a script for a YouTube video and edit. Okay, so next question. For extracurriculars, is it better to focus on the achievements or your contributions with 150 characters? So this is an excellent question. I will say that in the 150 characters, you want to include 2 things. So first, what you did, what was your role, and then the next one is what is the impact of what you did, and quantifiable if possible. So let me see if I can pull up what was my, I might have to cut this out from the recording, but since you guys are here, if I can find my comment app, I will show you guys. Give me one sec. Then I can show you a specific example of how I would write the description. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. I have found it. Okay, so there are a whole other host of things you can include, but essentially you want to pair what you did, and sometimes it'll involve a lot of different roles, and then the impact of what you did. If it was a nonprofit, tell me about the people you were helping. What was the difference between them before you did your work and after you did your work? So that's generally a good way to structure and describe that. And yeah, if you do want me to, I can review your descriptions if you would like, though I do charge for my time because my time is pretty limited. But if you just want to send me let's say, a Google Doc with your extracurricular activities and descriptions, I can probably review that in an hour or 30 minutes. So I'll probably charge $15, $15 for you guys. But it's just a way for me to protect my time. So if you are interested in having me review, then let me know. Okay, so yeah, Faith, just send me your extracurricular list, and we can get that started, because that is going to be a huge part of the college application process. Okay, which schools offer scholarships? And this was a message sent privately to me, so you guys might not see it in the chat. So in terms of scholarships, I will say, first of all, there's a mixture of different kinds of financial aid you can get. It could be just pure financial aid that is need-based. So that means that a college will look at your FAFSA or any other documents like that and take a look into what your financial circumstances are and how they can meet that need. So a need-based financial aid package will mean they won't care about your GPA, your test scores, or anything like that. They're going to award financial aid purely based on your financial circumstance. An example of a need-based financial aid program would be like Stanford, Harvard, pretty much most of the Ivies. And that is in contrast with something called merit-based scholarships or financial aid. They're going to take a look and see if you are at the top of your class. It's essentially like another round of like college applications, but they're just going to evaluate it like that. You won't have to submit anything additional. And the better the student you are, the more financial aid they will give you. So it's often considered kind of an unfair kind of advantage, but it does happen. So what you might want to look for, depending on your circumstance, is a need-blind admission process and a need-based financial aid system. So need-blind admission process means that, let's say a school like Harvard, they're going to look at your application and they're going to consider many factors on whether to let you in. One factor they will not look at is your financial circumstance. So that will prevent them from saying, we're going to accept only the legacy kids who have parents who are millionaires because we want money. No, they're not going to look at that. They're just going to look at your test scores, extracurricular activities, and stuff like that. And then a whole separate committee, which is a financial aid office, will evaluate your FAFSA and stuff like that and determine, okay, all they're going to get is the number of students the names of the students who were admitted by the admission office. And the financial aid office will separately evaluate how much money will we give them. So that is not exactly a scholarship, but it is a financial aid package. And I will say that schools like Stanford, the Ivy Leagues, and all that, they have very good financial aid. I still have student loans to pay off, but I got a ton of financial aid from Harvard, and I have friends who got just a full ride to Harvard just purely based on the financial aid package. So something like that is definitely a consideration to have. Other options for scholarships. Some schools will have a separate scholarship. So I think USC has one, the UC Berkeley has one, it might be called Regents or something. Just look into the website, and those scholarships are admitted or are given usually on a merit base to a select number of students. And sometimes that application process will involve having a separate essay that you need to write. I think when I applied, which was ages ago because I'm a fossil now, I had to write a separate essay. For UCs, you were just automatically considered if you applied. So I would check the schools on your list and take a look and see what the requirements are. As for a scholarship, I would take a look at websites like FastWeb, and I linked that in the scholarship section. So if you look at the tagged posts in my Slack channel, in the scholarship sub-channel, in the scholarship channel, it's early morning today, in the scholarship channel, you'll see a few links that I posted and also a few best practices to consider. Scholarship deadlines are always ongoing, so I would always stay on the lookout for those and apply. You can apply to the big national ones, so I think the deadline for that may have passed. The big national one will be like Gates Millennium, Questbridge if you qualify, and the deadline for Questbridge I think is in a week, so probably not going to be feasible. But there are things like Coca-Cola Scholarship and more, or Jack Can Cook Foundation. But then you also want to take a look for local scholarships because one, the applicant pool will be smaller, so that means you'll have a greater chance of getting in. And two, the application process might be a little easier. So how you can find local scholarships. It differs based on the community you're in, but first check with your high school's counselor because sometimes local scholarships will pub that scholarship to schools in the area. And who else will they tell but the college counselor at your high school? So shoot them an email, hop on a Zoom call with them, ask, hey, are there any local scholarships that you are aware of that you think I can apply for? The next thing to do is Google your county. I guess this is for US citizens, but Google your county plus scholarship, and sometimes that will bring up something. And I think that's a tip that one of you guys brought up. So again, I love the community because we get to crowdsource all this information. And yeah, I hope that answers the question. But again, if I missed any part, post another follow-up question and I'll get to that. Okay, so one other question that was privately messaged to me is, I don't have good extracurriculars, but cool academics. I wonder what cool academics means. Can I get into great schools? So yes and no. If you're looking at a school, again, I am not an admissions officer. I'm just giving advice based on my experience. So please take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I really don't like doing chance meets because, again, I am a college graduate. I'm not an admission officer. But let's say you feel like you're lacking in ECs, but have strong academics. You might want to consider a school that is more technical, like Caltech or UIUC or Georgia Tech, versus another school like the Ivy Leagues, where they look at, I think they give more weight in general to extracurriculars, the interviews and stuff like that. So it will be up to you in the end, but if you want to take a look at schools like Caltech or Cal Poly, those are like engineering STEM specialized schools. And from my understanding, based on the experience of my friends, they put a little bit more weight to your test scores and don't care as much about the other stuff. That being said, if you think you don't have good ECs, you can still make them good if you describe them in the right way. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen my peers and also a few other students in the past make is they will have stellar extracurricular activities, and even I will be really, really impressed with them. But the problem is kind of the description doesn't match what I know from hearing the student talk about their extracurriculars. So even if you have strong extracurriculars, it's not going to bring you anywhere if the description is not reflecting that. You want the description to be jam-packed with information. If you can add any numbers, like I impacted X number of students, they improved their grades by X% or something like that, put it in there, because again, there's no way an admission officer will know every single organization on the planet, and the only way they can tell is this a strong EC or not is by what exactly you did and what was the impact of what you did. The impact or the significance, right? If you joined like mock trial, for instance, there's not really an impact there, but the significance could be we placed for nationals within our county. That could work as well. So yeah, so again, if you feel like you don't have strong ECs, you can still describe them in an effective way to make them strong ECs. And you might want to check out a few schools that are maybe a little more technical based. So you can just Google like college lists in that way online, paired with the major that you're interested in. Okay, so any tips for an activity resume? Should it be black and white paper, one pager? So activity resume. Do you mean like a resume that you will send to teachers who are writing a recommendation letter for an internship? As far as I'm aware, you don't need to submit a resume for your college application, especially if that's already covered in the description. But if you are looking for a resume template, oh, college, some have it as an option, but not required. Gotcha. So in that case, I will direct you to, hang on, download. Okay. Cool. So in this link that I'm about to post in the chat, resume template, and if you scroll to the bottom, I have resume template for high schoolers, black and white, straight. Oh, I messaged that privately. Sorry, one second. Here we go. Okay, there. You should have a template there. You just need it. Nothing fancy, no colors. Honestly, adding colors makes it less professional. So stick with the template, and that's actually a template based on Harvard's. And I will quickly send you a link to. If you're wondering how to structure your resume, I can give you tips for days, but one free resource that is available actually through Harvard, and I still referenced it. I was actually revamping my resume yesterday, and I was using this as well. So Harvard published a guide on resume and cover letters, and actually let me share my screen so I can show you. And I'm going to link this in the chat as well. Okay, so this is geared towards college students, but there's a lot of takeaways that you can get from this. And all I did was just Google Harvard OCS resume or whatever. OCS is just Office of Career Services. And what's really great is that they tell you how to get started and things that you should do, don't, tips, etc. And then this is the gold mine. They give you action verbs for your resume. If you're getting tired of writing the word spearheaded all the time, or led, or directed, you have a ton of other options that even Harvard says are good. So I still use this. I graduated last year, but I still use this list and I go back to it all the time. I actually have this link bookmarked. So I highly recommend checking this out because this will really help you. And then they have other tips on like how to structure it. Obviously, when they talk about stuff like this, ignore it. But a lot of the same concepts apply because the art of writing a resume is pretty standard. So yeah, definitely take advantage of this. And you can use this list actually for your descriptions in your extracurricular activities because yeah, there's a lot of different verbs here you can use just to spice things up a little. Okay. Yes. Oh, I see Faith's question now. Yeah, so you can use these verbs for the extracurricular section as well, and I highly recommend doing that. And I can send these links again to the Slack channel just in case, because I know the chat might get lost after we end the call. Okay. Next question. Should one waive their rights to see the interview summary? So that depends on the school, though I will say that I would recommend doing that because if you put yourself in the shoes of an interviewer, they probably would feel more comfortable knowing that the only person looking at their notes will be the college. What you should be concerned with is not what did they write about me, but how do I present myself as a good candidate to the interviewers. So it's a similar thing with like teachers writing recommendation letters and you waiving their rights to see them. It's just going to tell colleges that it's going to be a more honest reflection of what they genuinely think about you. And if that's a good recommendation letter or good interview, it's going to go carry you farther. So I would recommend waiving the right to see that. Though, oddly enough, I don't actually remember that I had to actively waive my right to see the interview summary. that because I was able to view those notes in my admission file, and I did make a video on that, sharing the notes that he took. But if that is an option, in the end, the decision is up to you. But if I were you, I would waive the right to see them just to make the interviewer more comfortable with giving his honest thoughts. And you should be concerned with pairing your responses to a lot of different questions. And for questions you might get asked in the college interview process, check out in the college interview Slack channel, I posted actually many different questions that they might ask. And I'm about to post another one too with an updated list of more. So check those out. I would recommend going through all those questions and writing up a sample response, and then practice saying that in front of the camera, because it's going to give you sort of a pressure, because knowing that you're being recorded, and that'll kind of mimic what it's like when you're sitting down in an interview. That being said, it's totally fine to be nervous. I felt like I was going to just faint during my interview because I was so nervous. But the more practice you get in, the more practice you get responding to questions like that and shaping your story, the better prepared you will be. Okay. I have a message from an Indian international student saying, so because this question is specific to your circumstance, send me a DM in the Slack channel, and then we can talk through that, because I know the education system is a little different there. So let's go through that offline, because I know we have limited time, and I want to make sure that the tips I share can be applied to most people on the call. And I know we have a mixture of international and US-based students. Faith coming in with all the questions. I love this, and I hope for everyone else that this has been helpful. I will have to end the call in 4 minutes because I do not have Zoom Pro, so that's why I scheduled this call to be 40 minutes. But for those who came, thank you so much, and I will continue to answer questions until the time runs out. Okay, so can we also use section for, should we provide links, nonprofit website, and the additional information section? There is no need to provide links to the additional information section, especially if it's not asked for. I will say that what matters is just writing that description. I wouldn't worry about providing links, because chances are admission officers might be reviewing this through online, they might have it printed out, and they're going through thousands and thousands of different applications. So they probably will not have time to separately click a link and open it, especially if there is, let's say, a risk of them opening a link up to a virus. I'm not saying you will do that. I'm saying, like, among the 60,000 applications they get, there's a chance someone could send them a spam. I don't know. So I would focus instead on writing that description of what you did and what was the significance or impact of that. And you can also use action verbs from this resume to craft your description. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, it looks like there are no more questions, but I do hope that this was very helpful, and thank you guys so much for attending. I know for some of you this might be late in the evening, or for others of you it might be early in the morning, and it's a weekend and you're busy with college apps. So I really do appreciate you coming here. And yeah, I love helping students like you guys, because I went through the process and it's a journey. I just want to say that. So thank you so much for coming here, and remember that you can always reach out to me if you want any help. If it's a question, post it in Q&A so other students who might have a similar question can benefit from hearing the answer as well. And if you would like me to review your extracurricular descriptions or your college essays, just shoot me a DM, though I do charge for that. But if you are in need of financial aid, I can meet your budget wherever you are. Again, my goal in building College Lead is not to add another financial barrier, but instead to make as much high quality college prep information available and accessible as possible. The only reason I charge is just so I can protect my time, because if I don't charge, I'm going to get a flood of different essays, and humanly impossible to do that. But yeah, I really do hope that this was helpful, and yeah, keep in touch. You can access me through email, through Slack, or anything else. So I had a ton of fun. I hope you did too, and I hope you learned something new. And I will send those additional links in the Slack channel as well, especially the ones to the resume. Okay, awesome. Well, if there are no other questions, then I will end this call. And again, I really do appreciate you coming here to just listen to me talk early in the morning. I hope this was helpful, and good luck with everything. Take care.